We should buy another company. We should all sorts of things there. And the first thing we did was we just validated that. And people got it off their it was basically they got it off their chest. And then the power of empowerment, I then said, from the start, I said, okay, fine, it's our company. What are we going to do about it? We're the people who are going to change it. And there was one moment within it where someone, and there was a buzz around that maybe some people thought we needed to go buy another business because we weren't doing very well in our own business at the time, and therefore if we did, Pepsi's got Frito-Lay, we should go and buy something like that. And whilst I let it evolve, there were times when I needed to intervene. There were times when I had to say no. And the way I did that was I said, well, let me understand. And I did apologize to the person afterwards because I hit them pretty hard in a way. Let me understand. We're all here and we all agree that we don't know how to run this business very well right now. And you want us to go and buy another business, a business we don't know and understand, and run that. If we can't run our own business, I don't know how we can run another one. Unless what we need to do is we need to buy another business to find the management to run our business better. Well, that sort of ended that, that discussion. So, it's tough, but it's hopefully quite nice tough, all right? And that takes it off the table because then you're saying it's focus. So then very clear, what business are we in? The non-alcoholic, ready-to-drink beverage business. Huge business, lots of opportunity, that's what we're in. That takes all the rest off the table. Now you're focused on that. That's an achievement in itself because so therefore it's a business that we know. Now I use all of that knowledge to say, well, given all of the catharsis we've just had, what we've done wrong, what do we need to do to fix all of that? And that became the manifesto. And it was written by the people. And the last piece that you touch on is, again, we come back to empowerment. By the time that was written, in fact, there were some 400 managers involved because there were subgroups as well. So there were 400 people who've been involved in it. They were the top 400 managers in the company. There was no edict from the Mount. It was their strategy. So whilst we had to go around and disseminate that through the rest of the organization, the senior leadership wasn't running around saying, I'm not sure why we did that, that was right, that wasn't right. Well, they'd voted for it. We had a voting mechanism. Unless we got about 87.5%, it was anonymous electronic voting on pieces of the manifesto, it didn't go in. Then we go back and rework it. And we were normally sitting at 95%. But there are always people who, there always are, you don't get 100%. But funnily enough, the 5% who didn't like the process, didn't like what we were doing, they moved on anyway. Because the momentum, the camaraderie that comes out of that, they suddenly realize this isn't for me. And that's fine. Well, the first thing is, if your core business is not a business that's got long-term relevance with the consumer, then you're going to have to look at doing something else. And you see that. I mean, look at how IBM was reformed. And IBM was reformed because the core business was a business which was not going to exist in the same form in the future. So if you take the business we're in, which is basically, pouring liquid down throats, hydration is just a basic human need. So there's always going to be a need for, liquid refreshment. So you've got a core business that's going to exist forever. Apple has to keep remaking itself. Now you've got a brilliant person doing that. So he didn't have to go out and necessarily acquire other things, although if you think of the way he actually went into the movie business and then came back in, that brought a whole new aspect to Apple. But you do have to remake your business when you see that, it's the old buggy whip story. If you're in the buggy whip business, well, you better decide that you've got to acquire something else because buggy whips aren't going to be around forever, okay? But that's not where we are. Now there's a developmental side within that. If you look at some of the acquisitions we made, the Vitamin Waters and all the big push on juice, because Coca-Cola is the biggest juice, ready-to-drink juice company in the world. Broadening that portfolio is clearly a part of it, but it's within a very clear frame that obviously people can understand and the market can understand, and of course has legitimacy for long-term strategy. And the other thing that I try to insist upon, by the way, within the manifesto is that we were doing things for the long term. It was the short term that had got us into trouble. And that hurt me. It hurt the stock price as well. But we were doing it for the long term. And that was something I'd agreed with the board up front. Another important piece is that I'd met with all the directors, obviously, up front, but I had great support from the board because we had a clear understanding of what I was going to undertake, one of which was that I couldn't finish the job, coming back to the 5 years, and I would be sure that I got succession in place. I guess we'll come to that later on. Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing was I went to my wife and said, here we go again. I'm gone for 18 months, 2 years. And she'd been through this before. The first year is always terribly high pressure, so it's 7 days a week. And yeah, she'd been through it with me before. Got it. But no, you want to keep the home fires burning. You don't want tension there, okay? And she knew, here we go. So that and also you have to lead from the front. You have to show energy, you have to show passion, you have to show enthusiasm. Particularly the sort of situation we were coming from, and you to try and build trust and leadership. So, but I did compartmentalize things. We had the we had the legal issues, the SEC, Department of Justice, European Commission. We had the fact that there was a task force looking after us. In fact, which reported to a judge in terms of our labor practices. We had to deal with those, and I had to therefore allocate a period of time to get that sorted out. So legacy issues, get them off the table, because those were the dark clouds that were around. Next thing was to get the strategy itself in place, which is the work on the manifesto. But then we really had to have a good look at it. We're all about the brands, and we had to look at the brands, and we had to look particularly at brand Coca-Cola. Where were we with brand Coca-Cola? And therefore we started looking at, first of all, at the investment we're putting behind the brands. And there was a tough decision around that, but we were under-investing. And I had to go to the board in September. I came back 1st of June and say, I want to take $400 million off next year's budget. And we're going to go to the street and say we're delivering $400 million less. And that's forever, because we're just not spending enough behind the brands. I mean, this sort of, what happens is that management, salami style, takes a little bit off the budget every year, no one notices, and then eventually, of course, you hit the point where it's actually damaging the brand, and we'd hit that point. But the street doesn't like that, because they've got to run their numbers, and boy, the numbers are now different, and the stock got hit. There was a cartoon in the Wall Street Journal in January of 2005 of me being kicked by a Pepsi can. But again, in fact, that you would think that particular cartoon would hurt me. It was wonderful, because the people within the organization said, damn it, we're not going to let that happen. It was actually very, very beneficial. These little things. But I was dealing also, as I was doing all of this, I was also dealing with, so those are the prioritizations. But I was also dealing with the minds of the people in the company. And one of the things, and choosing, you asked me what did I choose to do. There are also the things I chose not to do. And that's even more difficult. It's easy to choose the things to do because the list will get longer and longer, and then you don't prioritize. It's choosing what you choose not to do. And you get criticized for that, because people say, well, doesn't he see that's wrong? And maybe I didn't, but some instances I would have, and said, I'm not going to do that. For example, we're still a high-cost organization, and I did take some costs out, but I didn't go on a major cost-cutting exercise, because the psychological impact of that would be very negative. The company had been through 2 major layoffs. It really, really damaged morale. And if I were to have gone back to that, it would have been same old, and I'd have broken trust. And I was asked in a